What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Faithful Phanatics show here on DSM Media's YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. Guys, if you are new to the channel, first and foremost, as always, make sure to check us out on Twitter first at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the page, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff. But if you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show or any of our DSM pregame lives that stream exclusively on this channel, make sure to check out the YouTube link in the link tree. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. Like I said, it's the best spot to get interactive here with each and every one of your hosts. I am one half of them today, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. To my left, my faithful co-host here, Scotty. You find him on Twitter as well at Scotty Drown, my man. Happy Monday. And we got a packed show, man. We have a lot to discuss. Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles continue to steal the show over draft weekend. Obviously, we talked about night one on Friday morning show, but we'll pick that conversation right back up here to start today. The Phillies have won 4 straight series. They finished the month of April above 500 with a 15-14 record. Bryce Harper could be back in the lineup tomorrow, so we're going to talk about that as well. And then, of course, the Sixers start the Eastern Conference semifinals round 2 tonight in Boston against the Celtics. Joel Embiid listed as doubtful. Obviously, that news broke over the weekend, so we're going to get into all of it, man. But how are you feeling on this Monday morning?
Man, it was an eventful weekend, so I'm feeling a little hurt on Monday morning. Mondays are rough, but I'm happy to get it started here.
A little extra rough today.
You know, wake up and wake up with the morning show. That's kind of what I'm using this for today. get my mind moving for the day. But no, I'm feeling all right, man. Happy Monday to everybody out there, and there's plenty to get into today. Which I'm excited about. It's mostly good things. Mostly Phillies,
mostly positive today.
That's all good. The Sixers, Embiid, things get doubtful, right?
Yeah. Doubtful. So, that is the perfect word surrounding this Joel Embiid news, right?
Yeah.
But let's start by picking up our conversation where we left off with the Eagles draft, man. We pick up from night one where Howie and the Eagles stole the show, selecting not one but 2 Georgia Bulldogs in Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. And we kind of discussed all day Friday how the reigning NFC champions, a team that just appeared in the Super Bowl, should never come out of night one of the NFL draft with arguably the best player in said draft, and then 2 mocked top 10 to 15 picks and steal the show from that night, right? But here's the crazy part. He follows night one up with a solid night 2, I would say, right? He adds a tackle from Bama and Tyler Steen, who adds immediate depth. Yeah, it adds immediate depth and flexibility to his offensive line. Like everybody wanted. See how you could do that? See how night 2, you can add a very good day 1 rotation piece to your offensive line, right? You don't have to build it for the future.
We're still confident in it. You know what I mean? We're still confident in it. It's an Alabama tackle. Like we have a strong chance of building on that.
Absolutely. And then he adds somewhat of a ball hawk safety from Illinois and Sidney Brown, who gives immediate depth to that DB room, right? Like this kid's going to come in, a second round pick, he's making the roster, right? Like this ain't we'll see what he does in training camp. This kid's going to be able to get reps and play in an Eagles uniform this year. I guess depending on what Howie has up his sleeve moving forward, which we all know the smoke with another Pro Bowler at that position anyway. We'll get into that, but then it gets a little bit crazier, my friend. On day 3, Saturday afternoon, right? Starts at noon. This is the boring day for most teams. You know, it's not the talent level isn't there. The excitement is there. You're not familiar with most of the guys left. Obviously, you can get your Mr. Irrelevance. You can get your Tom Brady's with the 199th pick. You can get all that good stuff, right? But on this long Saturday afternoon where you don't expect much drama to occur, Howie Roseman starts the day off prior to that noon start by trading all the way back up to the top of the 4th round, the 3rd pick to start the day at 105, to grab, yes, you guessed it, another Georgia Bulldog in Keely Ringo at corner, who was mocked to be, it was graded as a round 2 talent, round 2 to 3 talent. You get him in the 4th, another steal for the Philadelphia Eagles. And
you know who Todd McShay's comp is to Keely Ringo?
Is it
Trayvon Diggs?
Yeah. I did see. Here's the funny thing. I saw a random Twitter account tweet that out last night, so I don't know if they got that from from McShay or whatever, but they said, I
Yeah.
see a lot of Trevon Diggs in Kelee Ringo. So that is fun,
Interesting.
man. And listen, it brings a different style of corner to this team,
Yeah,
right?
physical. Yeah.
And then, Scotty, here it goes. I'm driving. I get a text, and it's an Adam Schefter tweet. I'm like, no, like it's a long text. I'm like, I don't know. I got to stop somewhere. He trades for DeAndre Swift, Scotty. I'm going to let you discuss this one because you have him in Dynasty football. I know you're a big DeAndre Swift fan. 24 years old. Yes, he comes across as quote unquote injury plagued, right? Did you know that on average, DeAndre Swift has only missed 2 to 3 games per season, and the running back average missed games across the league is 2 games per season? So with all this injury history and all this injury talk surrounding a 24-year-old kid on the last year of a rookie deal, Philadelphia native, St. Joe's Prep native, comes home and listen, for everybody that's questioning the injuries, he's RB1. Let's just stop the conversation now. He's RB1. When healthy, when used properly. I don't know if you can literally name me 10 running backs in the game better or more explosive. He's a pass catching threat. The read option with him and Jalen Hurts behind this offensive line is going to be incredible to watch. Howie Roseman, day 3, Kelee Ringo, and trades for arguably a top 10 back when healthy in this league. Talk to me about DeAndre Swift, man.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know how excited I am about DeAndre Swift. As soon as the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round, that's when my mind immediately went to DeAndre Swift's got to get the hell out of Detroit. And then you have to ask yourself, where are the best landing options? What's the fit, right? What makes sense? And the Eagles just made
But
too
it
much
almost makes
sense.
too much sense. It's
It's
almost
too
like
much
too
sense.
perfect.
He's from Phillies, St. Joe's Prep alum. He went to Georgia, right? He fits the Bulldog nature. It all just adds up there. But to your point, I just want to point out, like, this was maybe the best case scenario towards getting a running back in
Absolutely.
the draft, right? In the draft, getting a running back. But not only that, getting a top tier running back. So you look at Derrick Henry, you look at Dalvin Cook, you can even go to Austin Eckler. And then we can even bring up Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs going in the first round. Getting Swift for a 2025 fourth rounder is miles better than getting Bijan Robinson in the first round, wasting a first round pick that you used on Jalen Carter for that, right? So that's already defeated. Then Jahmyr Gibbs goes at 12, which was way too early compared to where he was ranked for his rankings. But then you go to Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. These guys are older. These are older running backs. These are running backs with a ton of miles on them. Derrick Henry's 29. I'd be curious to what Dalvin Cook's age actually is. I'm sure it's around 27, 28, 29 in that range. So when you look at it from a youth standpoint, DeAndre Swift is the move there. If Derrick Henry costs you a fourth, Swift costs you a fourth, I'm going with Swift. He's younger. Yeah.
By the way.
Yeah, 25 fourth round pick, and then
he
you
makes
swap sevenths.
Just over $1 million this year. He makes less than Boston Scott does this year, Scott.
And look, he has 1 year left on his contract. So let's say blah blah blah. He gets injured this year because that's what that's the big thing with us getting him. He's injury prone now, right? Let's say he gets injured and we end up letting him walk next year. Then we get a comp pick back anyways. So you get the pick back regardless, as long as he would get signed somewhere else. I personally think maybe he balls out this season. Maybe this is your running back of the future. This kid is nasty. He's arguably the most explosive back in the NFL when he gets
back to week 1. He torched us.
Yeah, exactly. He torched the Eagles, and then we just go out and get him. The thing that I'm most excited for, Dylan, is the passing aspect, though. Just giving Jalen Hurts that extra security blanket. You know, just think about how comfortable were you really when Jalen Hurts dumps the ball off to Miles Sanders. I've seen him drop that ball, that pass, so many times.
Or not hit an immediate hole.
It's just going to be a flick of the wrist for Jalen. Swift can catch it with one hand sometimes. You know what I mean? He can do things with his hands that other running backs can't. And then the breakaway speed is just elite. I'm overly excited about this. I was obviously pissed off with the way he was used in Detroit. from a
Absolutely.
dynasty standpoint. And from a standpoint of, I get it, Jamal Williams was great for them last year. He's a touchdown machine. But DeAndre Swift, you have the capability of breaking a playoff at any moment. And at the very least, they weren't even using him as a third down back. Like, it was
Right,
very
which that is
sparingly that they
utterly
used him.
ridiculous. See,
It's
that's my
ridiculous.
biggest thing. And I can understand this because Penny definitely has more injury concern and Swift has missed games every year of his career. So I get the conversation. But like I said, running back has to be probably the most injury prone position. Guys miss games all the time. Miles Sanders has missed how much time over the last couple of years? Swift in his 3 years in the NFL, before the seasons went to 17 games, they were 16. He played 13 of 16, 13 of 16. Last year, he played 14 of 17. Here's the funny thing. Under games started 4, 4, and 8. The way he was utilized, Scotty, was utterly ridiculous by Detroit. And I think that's the bigger storyline here. You don't see DeAndre Swift. I don't know how much Detroit Lions football we're all catching, if it's on red zone, if whatever the case is, but you're checking the box scores and you see his touches are limited and you're like, oh, he's just not healthy. No, that's not the case. They just did not properly use him in the past. And you even go to this year, like you said, you have a 24-year-old stud in DeAndre Swift. You move on from Jamal Williams, but then you bring in David Montgomery and give him a pretty nice payday. Then at number 12, you reach by a mile on Jahmyr Gibbs. And you move and it's like, okay, you're going to move DeAndre Swift now. But that's the best part about how this weekend played out, man. I was texting you back and forth. And it's so surreal to think about how everything, kind of just stacked up. But it's like when you have, your fanboy Eagles fans, right? And your buddies are texting you and it's, man, you think they can get this guy. And it's like, oh, probably not. And like, they're not good. No. Check. Like anybody you could imagine that you would want in the Eagles uniform from this draft weekend and a possible trade with DeAndre Swift, it happened. Like that's why I said to you in the beginning, it was almost too good to be true, that fit and that smoke of a rumor. And he does it, man. And he does it for no cost really at all. I'm excited. I think the biggest thing that you laid out was, 2 weeks ago, getting ready for draft, and we had Bijan Robinson conversations, and excuse me, we had Derrick Henry rumor conversations, and Dalvin Cook being moved possibly, and it's like, what would you give up? And in those guys, you also had injury histories, you had money, you had age, you had compensation. All you have to say for this kid is, let's hope he can stay healthy. Let's hope he can play 14 of 17 games, 15 of 17 games, right?
Behind the best offensive line
he's cheap,
in football.
He's young, he's explosive. He can do everything that this team needs from him out of the backfield. He's from the area. He went to the school that we are now Georgia North, right? Like he fits the mold of everything they're trying to do, and I can't wait to see how Sirianni uses him this season.
Yeah, I think you can get crazy with it, man. That's the thing. We have not had a running back like that. Like, when you're playing against San Fran, right, and they now have Christian McCaffrey, they go ahead and they shift him out, right? They have him move before the snap, pre-snap motion into a slot position, and now the defense is completely thrown off because Christian McCaffrey, once he enters the slot position, turns into a wide receiver. Literally, he runs routes like a wide receiver. That's what you're getting in DeAndre Swift. Like, you have that capability where now maybe you bring out DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny in your backfield, then move DeAndre Swift out to the slot. You have Rashad Penny in your backfield. You run an RPO, and you have DeAndre Swift that you can toss it out to as well. Like, these are the things, and that's just a really basic example, right? But they're going to have some really intricate type of systems that they can run with these running backs.
And
it's too exciting, man. I don't know. Like, with the Penny thing, I know Shane Half, he was talking about, how everybody's blowing up Swift. Swift is the more versatile back. Will they end up splitting carries? I imagine they will. If it was up to me, though, Dylan, he would be my 3-down back. I'm not lying to you. Like, his big play ability is just like that. And I get it. They may split his carries just to avoid injury, just to avoid those.
Yeah, I think Penny's your change of pace guy. And Penny also has the ability to to hit a home run as well on any given play.
He does.
He's very
To be
explosive
fair.
as well. He's a little bit more of a powerful back than Swift, you would say, but different style runners probably. But that's the exciting
They're
part,
insurance
man.
for each other as well.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It's going to be interesting to see how they're used, because I'm not going to lie to you. If Rashad Penny comes out and he's running like a bat out of hell behind this offensive line, and Swift, sits for 2 plays in a row or 3, or, one series or whatever.
Yeah.
Not a whole series, but you get my point. You're not going to be like, oh man, where is he? Because it's not going to be a glaring drop off, right? This isn't 1,000-yard rusher Miles Sanders to Boston Scott, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is Swift and Penny. You can still throw Gainwell in here. I think this is a very cool comment by D-Rab here, because we're sitting here talking about what DeAndre Swift can do for everybody else. And it's true. But think about what he dealt with in Detroit, who were a lot better last year, and they added to their receiving core. They traded away T.J. Hockenson, but he had Jared Goff, not the same offensive line, not the same play calling, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Think about what the Eagles provide for him this year. The ability for him to come into a contract year, a breakout year, as you mentioned, to be involved in this offense.
Yeah.
To be involved, to help an offense that Scotty could arguably average 30 points per game this season.
Dylan, to your point, like, as good as Detroit was offensively last year, were they as good as the Philadelphia Eagles? They were not. And I think the bigger thing for me is the coaching. I think even just having the coaches who can scheme DeAndre Swift into the right spots is going to do numbers for him. But yeah, playing beside A.J. Brown, Goddard, Devontae Smith, whoever else you want to throw
behind this line, like think about
behind
that,
the offensive line. That's the craziest thing. His quick cut ability, his ability to hit the hole and take off.
Also, think about with Jalen. Think about the read option with Jalen.
Oh my God,
with Jared. I don't.
There's no
too much read option, right? So listen, I don't know if that's anything DeAndre Swift is comfortable with. I don't know how much he ran it in Georgia, but in a college style offense, I'm sure there was a lot of options ran.
Yeah, exactly. So
if he's comfortable with it, that big playability in itself is going to be exciting to watch.
No, see, and I promise you, Darius, I know it sounds like it's the dynasty in me talking, and that will obviously benefit me if they Swift in a 3-down manner. But
I feel
honestly speaking, from like the way I view Swift, like I didn't go out and get Swift in dynasty because he wasn't the top 10 back. Like I went out and got Swift in dynasty because I think he can be that perennial top 10 back that can catch and run the ball. And I'm just super excited, D-Rad. Like that's it. Like I get it. It's great for me in dynasty because he's going to be behind the best offensive line in the league. But just the explosive capability. You're looking at Miles Sanders, who he had the capability to explode, but this is like times 3 or 4 for me when you look at the capabilities here for DeAndre Swift to break one off at any moment. And I think he can be a bell cow as well. He's a bigger dude. He's a thicker running back, bigger stature. So I'm excited. I know they're going to split carries. I know that 3-down back is probably a fantasy of my own, but I'm just super excited, Dylan. This was the best case scenario for running back and addressing that position. Mind you, I love Kenny G. I think he's a solid back. I think he will still get work in there with Penny and Swift as well. And I think you still have to keep your eyes on him because he is the guy that will be there after next season, right? Penny, Swift, they're not guarantees to be on the roster after this upcoming season. So you do got to keep Gainwell involved there. But it's exciting, man. It speaks to how he does. He surprises us every single year. There's no way we could have even predicted that before the draft happened that we would get DeAndre Swift.
No. That's the point, right?
Blows our doors off.
That's what makes it so exciting and so surreal is the fact that we did talk about this before the draft, but we talked about it in that ultimate fan point of view. Like, how crazy would it be if we can get this guy? And it's not crazy anymore. It's a reality what Howie has put together here. And one of D-Rab's comments, dude, this was funny, man. And it was a need, right? It was definitely a need after last year. So, I mean, who knows what this kid turns into? He's from Kansas State, right?
Yeah. We never have the punter with the huge legs. So, like, I'm excited for that. Like, I know it's just little, but those are little things that may have costed us last year, just not having a
absolutely
sensible punter. So,
which
I'm excited for that, man.
which a punter with that kind of leg, you would just assume automatically helps out your special teams unit in terms
Yeah.
of punt coverage and protection.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're talking about time to get down the field and everything and angles and everything like that, it allows the special teams to maybe have a couple more seconds or an extra, 2 or 3 seconds to get down there.
Let me ask you this. After this weekend, and I'm mind you, I know Howie's most likely not done. I don't know if it'll be Buda Baker down the line, whatever happens there. But are there any significant holes that you see on this roster now, leaving the draft weekend? Obviously, you're not going to fill every single hole going into a season, even. But the draft went about as good as it could, and then you add in the Swift trade. Are there any major holes that you're seeing on this roster? As we got plenty of offseason left to address them, but what would you possibly be looking for in the short future as we approach the start of the new season?
Man, I think in terms of holes, I would call them more weaknesses than like glaring issues and gaps.
I think that's fair.
I would say it's the same two kind of that we probably headed into the draft weekend with in linebacker and safety. Obviously, I like the Sidney Brown pick. Nolan Smith is an edge rusher, but from an interview I heard from a guy that used to cover Georgia on Saturday afternoon on the radio, he was talking about the fact that that Nolan Smith will probably be used in drop back coverage, a decent amount too. Like he's not just going to be a pure edge rusher for the Eagles, he would assume. So you have him. You had the step up for Nakobe Dean. I know they brought in the kid Morrow right from Chicago. He came over. Technically, Hassan's a linebacker. We know the position he's really used for. So, I mean, I think listen, if Nakobe Dean is what we all hope and pray that Nakobe Dean is coming out of Georgia and the steal of last year's draft in the 3rd round, that gap becomes definitely smaller.
Yeah.
We hit the safety, the Sidney Brown pick. I like it. Reed Blankenship is cool. Like them last year. I like the Terrell Edmonds pickup as a depth piece. There's no starter. To me, there's no guy at either the strong or free safety positions back there.
Yeah.
So you're still kind of waiting to see, like, listen, and Howie made a comment that we're never complete. We never view us as perfect. And we're always looking to improve. And it's like, hell yeah, I got one position you could definitely improve on. And it is that position.
Absolutely. Because I think when you're looking at the safety position,
D-Rab.
you have to ask yourself, like you said, who is that definite starter? Who's going to be that guy back there in the safety playing in the back of the defense? I've gotta get my words together here. The safety playing in the back of the defense. Who's going to be that guy that's going to be rangy, going to be able to get to balls in the air and get turnovers for us? And I don't know who that is yet. Obviously,
are you expecting Sidney Brown to step in day one? Like, are you rolling? Are you rolling with Terrell Edmonds and Reed Blankenship as your starters? I know you damn well don't want Kayvon Wallace starting.
What I'll say about all the safeties that we got, they seem very similar in a sense, right? Yeah. Reed Blankenship, Terrell Edmonds, they all can come up.
From what I read about the rookie, I think he's got a little more ball hawk in him. I think he was I forget the interception numbers, but I think he had, I want to say 6 I could be totally off here, but for whatever number I read, the kid was somewhat atop of
and it's like, when you have Slay and Bradbury, it's hard to say, we have to go, go out and get Brian Branch in the 2nd round or go up and get Brian Branch at the end of the 1st round. You have 2 elite corners. You can give up a little bit at the safety spot. Now, if they go out and get Buda Baker, you're not going to sit here.
Conversation ended if and when that
addresses it head on. And that's it right there if you get Buda Baker. But
you bring up an interesting
that would be the
point.
Question mark.
You bring up an interesting point with the cornerback room, with the signing of Keely Ringo. They got the kid, I think he's from Bama.
Eli Ricks.
What'd you say?
Eli Ricks or Eli
Ricks. And he was heading into the season, he was a grade round 1 or 2 corner. I don't know what happened this season. I don't know if he's injured. I have not a clue about the kid. But when you bring him in, you already have Greedy Williams. You bring in Keely Ringo. You have Maddox, Slay, Bradbury. Like, obviously not Maddox, Slay, Bradbury. Like, you have Zach McPherson. Like,
yeah,
you could see an adjustment to safety. You have Josh Jobe, you have Josiah Scott. Like you have about 8 corners on this depth chart at the moment.
They said, I mean, going into after we drafted Keely Rango, they were talking about him a bit. I saw all over social media. Said he could play a little bit of safety as well. So
listen, I'm not saying,
plenty of options.
There's definitely a couple things you can do. So it'll be interesting to see what
no wide receivers.
And
how do you feel about that?
What?
No wide receivers.
You know, I think Cowie's not done. I think there's one more guy, not a anywhere close to a number 2, but maybe another borderline 3-4 kind of guy that you brought in. Zacchaeus. You still have Quez, who I know we're very down on Quez, but Quez as a number 4, as a backup compared to a starting slot receiver is a lot better of an option. Zacchaeus also has big playability, as you saw in Atlanta. Like dude, we don't even talk about it. And obviously, like, we have our $255 million man, and I'm not talking about in a starting role at all, but like even the offseason, like Marcus Mariota is your backup.
Yeah.
Like Marcus Mariota, who was able to win games for a shitty Falcons team last year, is now your backup. And think to those 2 Gardner Minshew starts last year. How different the offense had to be tailored and how weak it looked. You don't have that. And he has the relationship with Zacchaeus. I think wide receiver isn't a big hole, but I do think you might see a veteran added as a 3-4 kind of player, almost like a Zach Pascal kind of addition. That was the last thing I wanted to say about the DeAndre Swift thing before we move on here, because I know we have a hard cutout right before 9 a.m. though. The DeAndre Swift thing, the timing of a draft weekend, man. You mentioned getting him like accustomed and all the different packages you can use him in. Getting him now, getting him before mini camp and OTAs and like way before training camp, all that, rather than we've seen it before, more on the defensive side, but we've seen, the additions in August from Howie. Like you get him now, he's got the whole offseason to be implemented into what they want to accomplish with DeAndre Swift. This isn't an August 28th pickup. And it's like, he really won't be utilized well until week 3 or 4. No. He's good to go day 1, man. Same thing with Rashad Penny. So it is, dude. It is a really, really exciting time. It sucks that football season's so far away.
So far, man.
It really does, man.
I'm ready to see these guys hit the field now, man. That's how excited I am. You got to ask yourself, right? How does it feel like the Eagles not only so it feels like the Eagles won the offseason again already. It's just getting started, right? We still have a lot of time to go here. The D-Hop could move. You have a bunch of running backs on the trade block. Buda Baker's out there for grabs. Like there's a ton
Aaron Rodgers moved already.
Right. There's a ton of things that still could happen. And you could argue that the Jets are the winner of the offseason just by getting Aaron Rodgers. I think that's fair as well. But just speaking from draft weekend, I guess you could put it that way. I think the Eagles made their case to win draft weekend for the second season in a row. And, it just feels surreal. It feels surreal to possibly think, Super Bowls are not won on paper. I'll say that out front, right? If that was the case, we would have won.
We know all too well about the dream team, right?
Exactly. But when you look at this team on paper, I know Javon Hargrave, we got to see Jalen Carter. Can he really, fill that role completely? The linebacker holes, everything. CGJ leaving, then Isaac Seumalo leaving the offensive line. You lose Miles Sanders. But you could honestly look at this team and maybe just convince yourself that this team is a little bit better. Like you could could look at this team and convince yourself that. I don't know if that's the case yet, just with the question marks. I shouldn't say holes, question marks at safety, but this team looks just as good as it did last season. And, everybody's talking about the pressure that's mounting up by making all these moves and filling these holes that we filled with this draft weekend. We did this last year. We went to the Super Bowl and lost the Super Bowl. Pressure is not a thing here.
Why do I care about pressure?
Pressure is not a thing here.
Having high expectations, so that makes that argument. I've seen it on Twitter as well from other fan bases, and we know
he had the pressure last year. Jalen was trying to earn a full-time job as a starter. That's where the pressure was.
Right. Jalen Hurts started week 1 not knowing if he would be back in 2023. Like, what? But
That's where the
listen,
pressure
you
is. The pressure
mentioned
isn't this
they're not
season.
one on paper, and we know all too well about Vince Young's comments and dream teams here in Philadelphia. But when you watch a team assembled like this, like it was last year, and you watch how that panned out and played out, so you know it can work. You know you can
Exactly.
build a team through a mix of young talent through the draft and top free agent marquee pickups. He's doing the same thing this year. Scotty, I got to be honest with you, man. I really don't need much convincing. I think I've already told myself there because they're better than last year. I listen again. I know when it comes to these draft picks, especially the first Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, you have to see it first. You need to see the production, how they translate to the NFL. Can Nolan Smith get pressure off the edge? Does Jalen Carter have the work ethic? Can he get in shape? I get the question marks compared to a proven guy like Javon Hargrave. I think I just, in my heart of hearts, I think the kid was the best player in the draft. I think he shows it from day one. I legitimately think you have him in defensive rookie of the year conversations because he is that gifted and talented.
Yeah.
I think they're better, man. I really do. When you talk about the running back room, you bring in a guy like Zacchaeus who's a young threat in the slot. You know, I don't know.
And I think just from a standpoint of like, I think something that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that this team's going to grow as well, right? Like Jalen Hurts and
man.
Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and AJ Brown, they get another
Another
offseason
year
together, and they're going to build that chemistry even more. Even Quez Watkins, right? We can throw him in the mix.
right.
You get another offseason to build, to grow. And the biggest thing here, man, we know Jalen Hurts is out there working. Like the
Absolutely.
contract is just going to push that drive even further towards winning. And we could see another jump from Jalen Hurts. Who knows, man? We could see.
I think that's
jump
a very
from Jalen Hurts.
I think that's a very key thing you just mentioned because a lot of guys you see the dip after a payday, right? You don't see the want to, and that's just one question mark you don't have about our QB.
Yeah, I just don't feel
like
that way.
there ain't no, I got my money, I can slow down, I can relax, I can take my foot off the gas. This kid just got a taste of what it feels like to play in a Super Bowl, and he got a taste of reality and disappointment smacked across the face. He knows what it takes to play the best in the world in Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and they lost by this much. Okay, Nick Sirianni just got. If you think because he got $255 million that this kid is relaxing or taking a step back, not a shot. Literally not. It's not even in the realm of possibility. But Scotty, we will continue the Eagles talk all offseason long, my man.
Absolutely.
It is going to be a really, really fun summer. A lot of hypotheticals, a lot of depth chart watching, a lot of OTA talk, training camp talk, all of that fun stuff. But we got to move on this morning because there is another team in the city of Philadelphia that I think has started to calm people down, Scotty. The Titans. We're talking about the Titans, man. Who knew if you just gave them more than a week and a half, things would kind of come back to reality and normalcy here. The Philadelphia Phillies end the month of April with a 15-14 record, one game above 500. Obviously, they're coming off of a 4-3 loss last night on Sunday Night Baseball to the Houston Astros. But, while the loss is never a positive, they had already won the series, taking the first two in Houston. It was their fourth straight series win. And it was a competitive game, right? Like, that was the biggest thing to me. You went into Houston, Nola dominated, Wheeler dominated. That was beautiful to see. This bullpen is otherworldly, dude. Freaking worldly at the moment. And you played them competitive on Sunday night, right? You had a couple opportunities with runners in scoring position. You had first and second with Turner and Schwarber with nobody out in the middle of the game. Couldn't even move the runners at that point. That was a little, it's deflating in the moment. Falter obviously pitches 4 1/3, 4 2/3. Gives up 3 runs or 4 runs, excuse me, I forget.
4.
We were texting back and forth. I'm over watching Bailey Falter pitch. I'm over watching Bailey Falter pitch in big moments, like Sunday Night Baseball, national broadcast, which sucked, by the way. It's the way the rotation has played out. Obviously, he got the nod in Texas to start the season as well against the Rangers, man. But overall, this Phillies team is putting it together, and they're playing really good baseball quietly, man. Like, they've won 4 straight series. And there's just it's flying under the radar. Nick Castellanos is so back. Like
Yeah.
so back. JT Real Muto is snapping out of whatever little slump he was in.
I think it's that World Baseball Classic, man. I think that got to JT, man.
Yeah. Well, it might have gotten to Trey too with all the home runs he hit. Trey's struggling at the moment. We're going to talk about him, I'm sure, man. But the positives: 4 straight series win, above 500 ending the month, which looked like a colossal disaster.
Yeah.
Wheeler and Nola in Houston get their revenge and just dominate this Astros lineup. Nola gets through 8. Alvarado shuts the door. Wheeler was great on Saturday. Bullpen, incredible. A lot of positives to take away from this Phillies team right now, man.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head there with most of it. But, I mean, I'm just looking at this weekend as like a glowing example that things are starting to normalize in a sense, right? You had Nola come out, give you 8 innings, give you
come back to our expectations.
That expectation of Nola, right? He came out and did what he was supposed to against a good Astros team, right? Coming off a championship against us, right? Get that revenge. Wheeler, same thing. He gets a shutout, over what, 6 innings, I think he pitched in his
I believe so, yeah.
6 innings pitched, 3 hits, 0 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Nola, 0 walks on his night as well. I want to point that out.
Huge, dude.
Falter, right? You get to Sunday night and Falter is Bailey Falter. Like I think that is what we saw last night.
Yeah.
And I think he was a glowing example of this conversation we're having about Matt Strahm. Who do you keep in that, that starting rotation? I think that the writing's on the wall there, but nonetheless, Bailey Falter comes out, has a night to forget, right? But the bats just couldn't finish things off. But you knew the Astros were probably going to get one of the 3 at least, right? Like you didn't think you were going to really sweep the defending.
Right. I mean,
champ,
you hoped after Saturday.
win. After you go 2-0, you are thinking, let's sweep them, right?
It's in the back of your head.
Get that pure revenge. But aside from that, man, I think you had a pretty positive weekend. You don't let that Sunday night outing ruin
Very
it. They were competitive, right?
Yeah. Very positive weekend, I would say.
That's the way I'm looking at it, man.
Not only did you take 2 of 3, so you won the games themselves, but you won the battles within the games. You won the storylines within the games, and getting positives out of those, like I said, with Nola and Wheeler is huge. Castellanos' home run, and dude, he's like taking on that like villain role, that like that asshole role,
rob the homer
against opponents, like on the road. That's what I love to see. That's the Nick Castellanos I have been waiting to see in a Phillies uniform. And again, man, you are doing this, and we're going to get into Bryce in a second. You've done this without Bryce. You're doing this without Ranger, right? You're doing this with a bullpen piece in your starting rotation. Yeah. You're doing this obviously without Reese and Reese's replacement in Derek Hall. You're doing this with a lot of things. You're doing this with Trey Turner struggling for the last 2.5 weeks of this season.
Yeah.
You're doing this, with Bryson Stott and Brandon Marsh and Alec Boehm coming a little bit more back down to earth than the way they started the season. Still playing incredibly well and hitting well, but
Cody Clemens, man.
Right. Not the 17-game hit streaks, not the leading the NL and the OPS and all that great stuff as of the last couple series. But no, it was a great weekend, dude. Oh, and that was the last thing I was going to say. I was drawing a blank for a second. It was funny because heading into the Astros series on Friday morning, you had brought up like, oh, how the Astros playing, because they started the season slow just like the Phillies did, and we kind of laughed because you were like, oh shit, they're actually playing really well now. Like they turned things around.
They picked it up.
And that's the Astros team that the Phillies beat. The Phillies didn't beat the 8-11 Astros that are starting the year sluggish. The Phillies just beat the Houston Astros on the road, who were playing at their peak in the first month of the season, playing at their highest level through the first month of the season. So that was a big takeaway. The biggest news, though, out of everything, all the wins, the series win, the 500-plus record, Superman is coming back. There's no other way to describe it.
Literally.
Bryce Harper is going to see his doctor today in Los Angeles. Okay?
Clear him.
Now, it is not set in stone. It is not 100% positive. Maybe a setback comes during this appointment. Not a setback, but a kind of pump the brakes. We are not there yet, and we got our hopes up a little too early. However, from Rob Thompson to Bryce Harper to reports, Bryce Harper might be in the Phillies lineup tomorrow. If
Yeah.
Bryce Harper gets the okay to head first slide, because that is the only thing holding him back, because if he slides head first, getting back to first, stealing, whatever it is, and somehow gets stuck on the base, you know how that can work, and it could rupture his elbow, could rupture
Yeah.
the surgery, right? As long as he's clear for that, Bryce Harper's back. He's not going to AAA to on a rehab assignment. He is
Crazy.
back day one, man. He is ready to hit now. He's ready to throw from first base now. He's ready to slide feet first. He's ready to do everything. And it is the quickest, by far quickest recovery time from a Tommy John surgery in baseball and any major sport for that matter. It is unbelievable. Superman, Wolverine, whatever, Iron Man, whatever you want to call this, okay?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Almost back, man. Scotty, this is a dude we were talking about. Bryce at the All-Star break. Bryce around the trade deadline. You're talking about late June to mid-July. Then it got to early June. Then it got to the end of May. It's May 1st. They played a month of baseball, and he's about to be back from Tommy John surgery in December.
He's a machine, man, and like you said, it's one of the quickest recoveries in MLB history and baseball history from that type of injury. And yeah, the Wolverine comment really hit for me, because you think about Wolverine, he regenerates everything like right in the moment his cuts heal, and that's kind of Bryce, right? Superman, same thing, man. There's nothing that can really break him, right? And I'm excited. Like you said, he's not going to do any time in AAA or anything like that. He's going to come straight to the Phillies lineup. We'll get to see him, and he'll get to get that experience and get the knocks out of the way early, right? I'm excited, man. And I think just alone, Bryce Harper returning, it's not just his play. He's the leader of the team. He's the guy. Bringing him back is going to put some juice into the rest of the team. You talk about guys that make their teammates better. Baseball is a sport where that is hard to do, right?
Yeah.
There's guys that can make a pitcher look better.
Right.
There's a pitcher that can make other guys look better. But when you're talking about inspiring a full team and leading a team,
you're out there one-on-one.
Bryce Harper's that personality, that leader that they need out there that can make big hits in big moments to get this team going. It's contagious, man. That's the perfect word for it. They get their leader back, though. That's the biggest thing for me, man. I'm so excited to see Bryce Harper back out there. The bank is going to be rocking in that first home game when he's back. I mean, it's just going to be. I'm getting chills thinking about it, and we're not even close to the playoffs. I'm getting chills about baseball and Bryce Harper, man. But that's what this guy brings. He brings excitement, and I'm excited to have our team closer to full strength once he's back. Once we get Ranger back, Painter. This team is starting to hit a little bit of a stride, even without those guys. You just hope when they come back, it makes this stride full on, and they can.
It's takeoff time, right? It's launch time, and that's the
biggest
way
to put it. Takeoff time.
You go back to the NLCS at home last year, and the game we started down 4-0, and then we come back, and Reese hits a shot, and Bryce doubles in the gap, and then Bryce doubles in the gap again, and this is my effing house, right?
Yeah.
It's contagious, man. You are right. It's not football. It's not basketball. It's hard to make your teammates look better out there. It's hard to help them out there because you're on an island. You're one-on-one at home plate against the opponent. But when you have a guy that leads by example the way he does, it shows even the small things, man. Like his two-strike approach, Scotty. The way he shifts his stance and his approach, and he gets rid of the kick. It's everything. And when you're a younger guy, when you're not as talented of a player or hitter as Bryce Harper, and you're in the dugout watching this, and you're like, wait a second, like Bryce freaking Harper is making this adjustment because he's in an 0-2 or 1-2 hole.
Yeah,
and he needs to.
I should try this.
I should try. I can do something like this, right? So he's the man. And I think the biggest thing for me, you mentioned getting your leader back, just having that name in the 3-hole, because you would expect maybe a little bit of a struggle getting the kinks out right to start the season. But when you acquire Trey Turner, right, that bat, and you already had one of the best lineups in the majors, you picture what it's going to look like from 1 through 9. Yeah. And when you're missing the NL MVP, it looks a lot different.
Yeah.
Right? Even like the 8 and 9 holes are different because of who's not out there in the DH spot or in right field or first base, whatever the case is for Bryce.
Yeah.
You plug him in. Now this lineup looks different. Like this lineup, let's just say it's Stott, Trey, Bryce, Costi, Schwarb's 5, JT 6, Bohm 7, Sosa 8, Marsh 9. You hear that? You hear who's not in that lineup? Jake Cave, Josh Harrison. No disrespect to the Hall of Famer, Cody Clemens.
Yeah, my man.
But it doesn't have Cody Clemens, right? Do you
Yeah.
hear that lineup? The only guy you didn't picture starting would be Edmundo Sosa, and he's been a pleasant surprise, and he's really good at third.
He's been great.
That lineup is so much different than an 8-9 or a 7-8-9 of Jake Cave, Josh Harrison, and Edmundo. Or you like just adding that piece, and it's not a piece; it's the biggest piece. Of the cake, right?
Yeah,
adding that back changes everything. Bryce Harper could be back tomorrow. The Phillies start a 3-game road stand in LA versus the Dodgers, which is another humongous test. Taijuan Walker, 10 p.m. game, 10-10 game, by the way. So Sixers, Celtics, 7:30, which we're about to get into. That's probably going to end, and we're going to be switching the channel right over to the Titans, okay? So late night West Coast action against the Dodgers. Taijuan Walker versus Tony Gonsolin tonight. Gonsolin, I believe, is only thrown like 4 innings this year, so hasn't gotten a lot of work. Used more of a reliever bullpen type of game, I would imagine tonight. We'll see. We'll wait for the news for Bryce to break today, and we will be back with more Phillies talk on Wednesday, I'm sure, man. But one last topic to get to. And guys, don't forget that the Phaithful Phanatics and DSM Media are proudly brought to you by Manscaped. Head on over to manscaped.com. Use promo code DSM for 20% off and free shipping at checkout. Again, that is promo code all caps DSM for 20% off your total bill and free shipping at manscaped.com. Tell them that your friends at DSM Media sent you. Sixers, Celtics, Eastern Conference semifinals starts tonight in Boston, man. Obviously, a lot of hype, a lot of emotions heading into this one. One of the biggest rivalries in sports history and NBA history, and in recent history for the Sixers team in round 2 specifically, it feels like. However, at 9 a.m. right now, 8:52 a.m. on May 1st, the emotion level is a little bit down, simply because of the unknown for tonight for me. You have the Joel Embiid news, which you got the extra 2-day rest. Thank you, Trae Young. You thought it would be enough. It's an LCL grade 1. It could heal within a week. He should be fine. If anything, he wears a brace. It's feared, apparently, whether we were lied to, whoever mismanaged this injury, the report, it's feared to be worse than a grade 1 LCL.
It's like, what does that mean?
Right. Is it grade 2? Is it grade 3?
Is it a different part of his knee? Right. You know what I mean? Like, what are we?
No idea. The good news, he practiced yesterday. He shot around. There didn't look like a hitch or anything in his jumper. He was feeding James Harden in the corner. He traveled with the team last night to Boston. Remember that. Whether he plays game 1 tonight or not, obviously you want him to. But the fear of this being later on into the series, if he misses tonight, you would almost have to assume there's good news he's going to play on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because of him flying to Boston.
Yeah, why fly? Yeah.
He wouldn't be traveling with the team if there wasn't a plan for him to play. He's not listed as out for tonight.
Like, if it
was, outfield doesn't sound good, but he's not out.
There's been some speculation that maybe his season is ending and they're not trying to tell us. You wouldn't fly him out there if that's the case. That's the good thing about that. To your point, man, it is a little deflated. It was deflating on the weekend, and I just had to kind of ignore it with everything that was going on with the Eagles and Phillies that was going positive. I just had to ignore that on Saturday. But looking at Embiid, you mentioned it. You see him at practice. We're playing this like Where's Waldo game at practice with the Sixers in pictures. He is out there. He didn't look like he had on a knee brace either, which is interesting.
Part, dude.
So that's what I mean, Dylan. You know, Doc Rivers, the Sixers organization. You look at the numbers, right? And I'm glad I thought of this because it's something I wanted to pull up for this game or for this show for this game. But looking at these numbers from Elliott Shore Parks,
that's
it's
actually
Elliott
funny.
Shore Parks.
Brett just mentioned, take a look at this.
Exactly. The tweet from Elliott Shore Parks breaks this down a lot. So in the few times, I shouldn't say few, the many times that Embiid has been listed on the injury report in the playoffs, 4 times he's been listed as doubtful, 3 times he's played in that listing, right? Questionable 12 times, he's played 11 times. Out 5 times, he's played 1 of those times. So he could be marked out and still potentially play. That's just how bad the Sixers are with lying to the media about his availability. I'm not saying that he's going to play tonight. I'm not saying that there's nothing there. I'm just speculating on everything that is coming in about this situation. But looking at the situation, let's just say without Embiid, right? Guys are going to have to step up tonight. How long is Embiid out? That's going to be the key thing. If it's one game, they do still have a chance in this series. If it's the first 2 and you drop both of those, you can't, steal one from Boston without Embiid. Things start to look really grim because this series is going to be so close, even with Embiid. So you think if he just misses one game, that could throw this series off because maybe, just maybe, they go out and lose game 1 without Embiid. Maybe if he plays game 1, they win that game. That's your opportunity. You have your full squad. So that's the worry for me. But there is a part of my mind, Dylan, that looks at this situation without Embiid. Mind you, what it would take, right? What would it take to beat Boston without Embiid? Harden, right? You almost have to get Houston Harden at that point. You need it, right? You need about 25 to 30 points from Harden. Maxey would have to hit the next level of his evolution. This would literally have to be a breakout series for Maxey at that point, right? And then once you have your stars aligned at that point, you need the rest of your team to be perfect. Paul Reed has to come out and give you a double-double, right? Play out of his mind. Tobias Harris has to come out and do extra stuff. So there is a world where this team could steal 1 without Embiid, I think. If they get hot from the three-point line and you get Embiid back game 2, that would be beautiful. But to say they would be able to do it over a whole series, that's a real stretch. And I think you would be discrediting Embiid at a sense at that point, right?
If Joel's out the whole season, a whole series?
Yes, you would be discrediting Embiid's effect on the game at that point. Let's be realistic.
Listen, let's be really realistic. This is the percent chance that they would have to win the series.
Yeah.
0, zilch, none. If he misses the whole series, none. Yeah. If he misses the first 3 games, none. Yeah. Game 2 has to be the max.
The defense
has to be the max. 1, to me, 1 really needs to be the max, but 2 ultimately is the cutoff line.
2 could end your season. 2 very well could end your season. 1, you're really putting things at risk, and that percentage of chance to win the series goes down even further.
Absolutely,
I'm with you, man. I think the Sixers, they could play 4 out and spread the floor, shoot a bunch of threes, and try to go about it the Brooklyn Nets way, right? Basically what they did to us. But ultimately, I think the main thing that Embiid would hamper losing him ultimately is on the defensive end. Your defense is going to suffer without that anchor in there. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they will be able to drive in the paint, finish layups all night. So, you need Embiid at the end of the day. I tried to work my head around it and, can the Sixers do this? Can they do that? Can Maxey show up?
And I hate to be that Debbie Downer. I'm just
that's the truth.
Come on, it's just not happening, right? It's just, you would argue that even if Embiid's only 70%, you really might not have a chance, but you just need him out on the floor.
Really tough.
You need him as close to 100% as you could possibly get him, but at the end of the day, you do just want him out on the floor and available to play. Guys, that is going to wrap up this Monday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter first at DSM_media. Check out the link tree in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available or stream here on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout any of our shows here at DSM or catch DSM pregame lives, which we will be live breaking down the Sixers Celtics game 1 tonight, 6:30 p.m. On the DSM Media YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. We greatly appreciate it. I believe we're at 723 right now, Scotty. Help us get over that 800 mark, everybody. And that is going to do it for myself, for Scotty, for the rest of DSM Media. Have a great rest of your Monday.
Sixers pregame tonight.
And Philadelphia has it.